Welcome back to the Nature Cures podcast, where we uncover the secrets of natural healing and holistic wellness and living your healthiest life naturally. Today, we're taking a deep dive into natural ways to address anemia.
It's a great topic
Yeah.
because while anemia is common, a lot of people really only think of it as being tired,
Right.
but it's much more than that.
Yeah. And get this, our bone marrow produces 1 trillion new blood cells every single day.
Wow.
1 trillion. But if we have anemia, what does that mean for how our body recovers?
That's a fantastic question, and it really highlights how incredible our bodies are at constantly renewing themselves.
Right.
However, with anemia, this amazing factory in our bone marrow can't quite keep up with the demand. It's like a car running low on fuel. It can still function, but not at its best.
Okay, so anemia means we're low on red blood cells.
Yeah.
But what makes those cells so important in the first place?
Think of your red blood cells as tiny delivery trucks,
Okay.
carrying oxygen to every single cell in your body. When you have anemia, you have fewer of these trucks, or they're not carrying enough oxygen, which is like the fuel our bodies need to thrive. So everything slows down, energy dips, and we start to feel the effects throughout our entire system.
And it's not just about the number of red blood cells, right? There's also hemoglobin, which is what actually carries the oxygen within those cells.
Exactly. Hemoglobin is like the cargo on those delivery trucks.
Yeah.
Without enough of it, even if you have a decent number of red blood cells, your body still won't get the oxygen it needs.
So it's a double whammy, not enough trucks and not enough cargo.
Right.
No wonder we feel exhausted. And speaking of feeling off, I was surprised to learn that anemia can cause some unexpected symptoms, like wrinkles.
It's true. Oxygen is crucial for healthy skin.
Yeah.
And when our tissues are deprived of it, we can see signs of premature aging like fine lines and wrinkles.
Wow, that's a good reason to pay attention to those early signs.
Yes.
And it makes sense that pale skin is another symptom.
Yes.
It's like our bodies are literally lacking that rosy glow of oxygenated blood.
Exactly. And it's not just about aesthetics. Pale skin can be a sign that your body is struggling to deliver enough oxygen to vital organs.
Okay, so we know anemia impacts how we look and feel, but what actually causes this shortage of red blood cells in the first place?
Well, there are a few possibilities. Think of it like a leaky faucet. You could have low production of red blood cells, high loss of red blood cells, or even a combination of both.
That's a helpful analogy.
Yeah.
So what could cause that faucet to leak or run dry?
Good question. Low production can be caused by things like nutritional deficiencies, especially a lack of iron, which is essential for making hemoglobin. There could also be issues with the bone marrow itself, where red blood cells are produced.
That makes sense. And what about high loss?
High loss could stem from a variety of factors, such as heavy bleeding, whether from injury surgery or menstruation. There could also be internal bleeding that's not immediately obvious.
I also read that some digestive issues can interfere with how our bodies absorb iron.
Absolutely. If our stomach doesn't produce enough hydrochloric acid, which helps break down food, it can make it harder to absorb nutrients like iron.
And then there are the more unusual culprits, like intestinal worms.
Right. Certain types of worms can actually feed on blood, leading to iron deficiency and anemia.
It's amazing how many different things can contribute to anemia. It really underscores why seeing a doctor for a proper diagnosis is so important.
I completely agree. Self-treating can be risky because you might be masking the symptoms without addressing the underlying cause. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a leaky pipe. You might temporarily stop the drip, but you're not fixing the real problem.
Exactly. So once you have a proper diagnosis, what are some of the natural remedies that stand out in helping address anemia?
Well, I was particularly fascinated by the information on beets.
Oh.
They're like a nutritional powerhouse for our blood, packed with iron and other compounds that actually help boost oxygen uptake.
I've always loved beets, but oxygen boosting power. Tell me more about that.
Beets are a good source of nitrates, which our bodies convert into nitric oxide.
Oh, okay.
And nitric oxide is a vasodilator, meaning it helps relax and widen blood vessels, improving blood flow and oxygen delivery throughout the body.
That's incredible. It's like beets are giving our blood vessels a little helping hand.
Exactly. And it's not just about beets. There's a whole world of natural remedies that can support our blood health.
And it sounds like a holistic approach is key. It's not just about eating more iron. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports our body's natural ability to heal and thrive.
I couldn't agree more. Things like sunlight, stress management, and even emotional well-being play a role.
Wait, emotional well-being. How does that tie into anemia?
Well, think about it. When we're stressed, our bodies release cortisol, which can actually interfere with iron absorption.
Yeah.
And chronic stress can deplete our energy levels, making anemia symptoms even worse. So
Oh.
finding ways to relax and manage stress is essential.
It's fascinating how everything is interconnected.
Yes,
Our physical, mental, and emotional states all influence each other.
exactly. And that's why a holistic approach to healing is so powerful. It's about addressing the whole person, not just the symptoms.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into those natural remedies. What else can we do to support our blood health?
Well, in addition to beets, there are other fantastic foods that are rich in iron and other blood-building nutrients. Think leafy greens like spinach and kale, dates, raisins, and even molasses.
Molasses, I wouldn't have thought of that.
It's a bit of an old-fashioned remedy, but it's packed with iron.
I'm learning so much today.
Mm.
And I remember reading about the importance of combining iron-rich foods with vitamin C.
Absolutely. Vitamin C helps our bodies absorb iron more efficiently, especially from plant-based sources. So squeezing some lemon juice on your spinach salad or having a side of bell peppers with your lentils can make a big difference.
Great tips. And let's not forget protein. We need it to build those red blood cells.
Right, and it's not just about quantity, but quality as well. Foods like milk, cheese, eggs, quinoa, buckwheat, and hemp seeds are all great sources of complete protein, meaning they contain all the essential amino acids our bodies need.
So we've covered the importance of diet, but I know there's more to it than just food.
There is. The source material also highlights some external therapies that can be beneficial. We'll dive into those in the next part of our deep dive.
Perfect.
Yes.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll explore those external therapies and delve even deeper into the world of natural remedies for anemia.
Welcome back to the Nature Cures podcast.
All right, so in part 1, we were talking about different things that cause anemia.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised to learn that, like, intestinal worms
Right.
can cause anemia.
Yeah, it's not something people typically think about.
Right.
But certain types of worms, particularly hookworms, actually latch onto the intestinal wall and feed on blood, leading to iron deficiency.
Oh, wow. Well, thankfully, there are natural ways to address those parasites, right?
Absolutely. Nature provides us with so many powerful tools. The source material mentions garlic, fresh papaya, and grated raw carrot as being effective.
Yeah, those are all things I have in my kitchen already. I love that, like, simple everyday foods can have such potent healing properties.
Exactly. Garlic, for example, has antimicrobial properties that can help eliminate those harmful organisms. And both papaya and carrots contain enzymes that help break down and expel parasites.
It's incredible how nature provides these solutions.
Yeah.
So beyond addressing those more unusual causes, what other natural remedies can help with anemia?
Well, we've talked about iron, but there are other key nutrients to consider. The source specifically highlights vitamin B12 as being crucial for preventing and curing anemia.
Yes, vitamin B12. But what about people who don't eat meat? Because I always thought vitamin B12 was mainly found in animal products.
That's a common misconception. While meat and dairy are good sources, there are plenty of plant-based options as well. The source lists dairy products, peanuts, wheat germ, and soybeans
Okay.
as good sources of vitamin B12.
That's great to know. It means that everyone, regardless of their dietary choices, can access the nutrients they need to support healthy blood.
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of a diverse and balanced diet rich in whole unprocessed foods. For example, the source mentions lacto-ovo products, which are complete proteins and contain B12 as good insurance against anemia.
So for those who might not be familiar, lacto-ovo refers to a vegetarian diet that includes dairy products and eggs.
Precisely.
Got it.
And while the source mentions that a heavy meat diet can be associated with high hemoglobin and red blood cell counts, it's important to remember that balance is key. A diet overly reliant on meat can have its downsides.
That makes sense. What kind of downsides are we talking about?
Well, for one, a meat-heavy diet can contribute to what's called intestinal putrefaction, which is basically the process of protein decaying in the gut.
Oh, okay. That doesn't sound good.
It's not, and it can actually hinder iron absorption.
Oh.
Plus, a diet that's lacking in fiber, which is found in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, can slow down digestion and contribute to this problem.
So it's really about finding that balance,
Mm.
getting enough protein from a variety of sources, including plant-based ones, while also ensuring we're getting plenty of fiber.
Absolutely. It's all about creating a harmonious environment in our gut where nutrients can be properly absorbed and utilized.
Okay, speaking of harmony, I am curious about those external therapies you mentioned earlier. What does the source say about treatments that go beyond diet?
Well, one therapy that stood out to me was water treatment,
Okay.
specifically cold water baths.
Interesting. I've heard of cold plunges being good for circulation, but how does that relate to anemia?
The source recommends carefully graduated cold baths twice daily, along with cold friction and occasional hot Epsom salt baths and cabinet steam baths.
Wow, that sounds invigorating.
It can be, and it's thought to be helpful because cold water immersion stimulates circulation, which is essential for delivering oxygen throughout the body. Remember, anemia is all about getting that oxygen to our cells.
Right, it's like giving our circulation a jump start. What about other therapies?
The source also mentions the benefits of full sun baths for stimulating red blood cell production.
That's interesting. I know sunlight helps our bodies produce vitamin D, but I didn't realize it had a direct impact on red blood cells.
It does, and it's something to be mindful of, especially during winter when we tend to get less sun exposure.
So soaking up some sunshine, taking cold plunges, it's all about connecting with nature and harnessing its healing power.
Exactly, and those connections can be simple and enjoyable. The source also recommends deep breathing light exercise like walking and gentle yoga for improving circulation and reducing stress, which indirectly supports blood health.
I love that. Incorporating these practices into our daily lives can make a big difference. Any particular yoga poses recommended?
The source actually lists several poses that are thought to be beneficial for anemia, including Sarvangasana, Paschimottanasana, Uttanpadasana, and Shavasana.
It's amazing how a holistic approach addresses all aspects of our being, physical, mental, and emotional.
I completely agree. And it's empowering to know that we have so many natural tools at our disposal to support our health and well-being.
This is all such valuable information. But before we wrap up part 2, I'm curious about one thing. We've talked about physical remedies, but what about the emotional and energetic aspects of anemia? Can those play a role in healing?
That's a great question, and something we'll explore in more depth in the final part of our deep dive. We'll delve into the subtle connections between our emotional state and the health of our blood, and how addressing these aspects can contribute to a more holistic healing journey.
I'm really intrigued to learn more about that. Be sure to join us for part 3, where we'll continue to uncover the secrets of natural healing and empower you to live your healthiest life naturally. Welcome back to the Nature Cures podcast for the final part of our deep dive into natural anemia remedies. We've talked about causes, symptoms, diets, supplements, even external therapies like cold baths, yoga.
Right.
Now, I really want to get into this connection between our emotional state and our blood health.
Yeah.
We talked about how stress can impact iron absorption. Are there other connections there?
Well, the source material doesn't directly address this, but it's interesting to think about how blood is seen as like a symbol. You know, in a lot of cultures, blood represents life force vitality, even like our very essence.
Yeah, and people with anemia, they talk about feeling depleted, not just physically, but emotionally, even spiritually.
Exactly. It's like their life force is diminished. And when you think about it, blood is literally carrying oxygen and nutrients to every cell in our body. So it makes sense that not having enough could have a huge impact on our well-being.
So it's not just about addressing those physical symptoms, it's about nourishing our emotional and energetic bodies too.
Exactly. And this is where things like meditation, mindfulness, even journaling can be really helpful.
I love those practices for just creating inner peace and reducing stress, which can make anemia worse.
Right. And it's not just about reducing the negative. It's about bringing in positive emotions, experiences that nourish our spirit and replenish our life force.
I love that. Like, what are some examples of those nourishing practices?
Spending time in nature, connecting with people you love, doing something creative, anything that brings you joy and makes you feel truly alive.
It's about filling our cup, not just emptying it.
Exactly.
And I imagine having a sense of purpose and meaning in life can also contribute to a sense of vitality.
Absolutely. When we feel connected to something larger than ourselves, it gives us this sense of energy and motivation that really goes beyond just the physical.
We've covered so much in this deep dive. So as we wrap up, what can we do to prevent anemia from developing in the first place?
Well, as we talked about, a nutrient-rich diet is essential, making sure you're getting enough iron, vitamin C, B12, protein.
And remembering that quality matters just as much as quantity. Choosing whole and processed foods.
Exactly. And beyond diet, lifestyle factors are huge. Managing stress, getting enough sleep, exercising regularly, all of that supports healthy blood production.
And I want to add that addressing underlying health conditions is so important. If you have digestive issues, heavy menstrual bleeding, it's so important to see a doctor.
I agree. It's about being proactive, listening to your body, and addressing any imbalances that could contribute to anemia.
It's about taking ownership of our well-being and understanding that our choices have a powerful impact. So as we close out this episode, What's one key takeaway you want people to remember?
I think it's important to remember that healing is a journey. It's not a destination. There will be ups and downs, and it's not always going to be a straight line. But by taking a holistic approach, nourishing our bodies with nature's wisdom, and honoring that connection between our physical, emotional, and spiritual selves, we can really cultivate vibrant health and well-being.
Beautifully said. And remember, this is just a starting point. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions.
Absolutely, knowledge is power. The more we understand about our bodies and the natural world, the more empowered we become to take control of our health and live our best lives naturally.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. We'll see you next time on the Nature Cures podcast.